We're now joined by Mike Walwyn, who is the director of the South African Association of Freight Forwarders, and he joins us via our video link. Mike, thank you so much for joining us here on the late edition. Of course, South Africa is facing a major crisis when it comes to our ports. 96 vessels are stuck at sea. How did we even get here?
Yeah, it's a long story. We've been working on it for a long time, probably not loudly enough. But it's a long saga of lack of maintenance, lack of replacement of equipment that is due to be replaced, and of course, mismanagement, I have to say, on the part of Transnet. And that goes for not just the ports, but for the railways as well. And all of that has led us to this point where we really are quite desperate.
And, this could have been avoided. What needed to be done to ensure that we don't have so many vessels stuck at the port?
Yes, well, the first thing is to increase and improve the productivity of our ports. Now, that's where you need the new equipment or the up-to-date equipment, and you need to maintain your old equipment. That hasn't been happening. So that our productivity now is, in most of our ports, probably half or less than half what it was just a couple of years ago. Which means that the speed at which you can handle the cargo on and off the ships is obviously much reduced. And so the time they spend in harbour is longer, and that's where the queue comes from. Durban is capable of handling a lot more than what you see out there if it had the right equipment, maintenance and management.
And we understand that this is actually costing businesses millions of money. How is this actually affecting businesses here in South Africa?
Yeah, you're quite right. There's a lot of hidden costs. So, for example, goods that should have been on the shelves at Christmas time now will not be. Farmers that desperately need fertilizer that's sitting right outside Durban, they really need it because now is the time when they use the fertilizer in growing season. They can't get their fertilizer. If you look at the other side of the coin, our exports are moving far too slowly, and therefore our foreign exchange earnings are down. Specifically, I can talk about Richards Bay, where the failure of the rail connection has lost out on about 20 million tons of coal that could not be shipped at a time when the price of coal was at an all-time high. So there are lots of, you have to think about the impact on people further up the line or down the line. So, for example, truck drivers. Now, in that long queue of trucks at Richards Bay, there's a human aspect to this. There are hundreds of drivers out there stuck in the middle of the N2. They have no facilities, no toilets, no running water, no food, no shops. We have truck operators. They're often small one-man bands. They're good at what they do. Really good case or good example of SME business. And I know that one of ours told me just yesterday he's closing the business because if you can't get 2 or 3 loads a day at the port, you're going to lose money. So there are all these knock-on effects, if you like, and I could go on for a long time, but I don't get the general picture.
Yeah, and how long will it take for us to fix this problem? I mean, we are on just on the doorstep of the festive season, and I also understand that some businesses are also starting to make alternatives of even getting some of their stock flown in, meaning they'll be incurring even more costs.
Quite right. If you're desperate, you're going to fly the stuff in. 2 problems with that, apart from the exponentially bigger cost, is the space availability. You cannot ship the equivalent of 70,000 containers by air. Never happen. So you can cherry pick and bring in important stuff, and that you can do by air. But for the rest, I'm afraid there's no quick fix. We've had a lot of engagement with Transnet and government over the last several months and years. And we're getting to the point now where we are assured that they're speeding up the procurement process and orders for the equipment will be placed before the end of December, and they might arrive here in a couple of months. So our best guess is that for any sign of improvement, we're probably going to have to wait until March.
Do you foresee any job losses that will be caused, by this problem in which we find ourselves in?
Yes, I'm afraid so. I spoke already about the truckers. And that's a clear case. I mean, those small truckers each employ a few people, not to mention having families. But you can look at a lot of other aspects. So, for example, our big fruit export season is about to start. Now, if that is seriously disrupted by this, which I think it probably will be, your shelf life then goes out and your fruit is worth less. We're less competitive in the world market, so people start buying elsewhere. All of that happened, and there are, upwards of 100,000 people employed in the agricultural industry in the Western Cape alone. And if you think about that, that's got to lead to some job losses. And it just goes on and on and on. I mean, the people directly impacted by this, you have to feel really sorry for, because there's no quick fix. The best, as I say, any improvement is probably around March.
And Mike, what does this mean for an economy like ours? I mean, we have a struggling economy, and if a major port such as this one, which plays a very significant role in our country, is having such problems, what does this all mean for the economy?
Yeah, it's very serious. I mean, I spoke about the coal example, 20 million tons not sold. I spoke about the lack of earnings or the lower earnings of a lot of exporters. And one of the key things here is to keep the exports going, because the balance of payments requires that. And that is looking bad. We also have a situation where at least two of the major shipping lines have said, okay, they're taking South Africa off their main route because the ships are being disrupted here and not keeping to their schedule. So they are going to put everything in and out via Mauritius. And I understand why they need to do that, because they've got a global schedule to consider. But what does that do to us? It lengthens our transit times and increases our costs. And that's just starting now from the 1st of December. So the impact of that we haven't quantified yet, because we know it's not going to be good.